ever watched an anime and thought, I wonder what they left out, or I wonder what they changed from the manga? Well, that's where I come in. I got you. You don't need to look it up. Today we're going to be talking about an anime called The Eminence in Shadow. Eminence in Shadow is a Japanese novel series written by Daisuke Aizawa. The exact day he started writing this popular light novel is not clear, but he started making waves online on a website roughly translated Let's Become a Novelist in May 2018. Now this same website birthed other popular works such as Log Horizon and The Irregular Magic High School, two anime and manga that I absolutely love. If you want me to talk more about those, let me know. And 6 months later, in November of 2018, the novel will go on to be published by Japanese publishing company Interbrain. Just 1 month after that, in December of 2018, the novel will be given a manga adaptation with art by Sakano and published by Yen Press. Now for simplicity's sake, I'm not going to be talking about the light novel, but just the manga and the anime. Now we have to keep in mind that anime has a long story to tell, a very short amount of time to do it. Animation is expensive, so they usually leave things out for that reason. We start with episode 1 titled The Hated Classmate. Now right from the start, the main difference between the anime and the manga is the inclusion of the character Akane Nishino. Akane does not exist in the manga at all, so all interactions with Akane are unique to the anime, which is why this part will be a little longer. The anime starts off with Akane as the main focus, so we're going to pause right away. Now if you watch any anime, and I mean any at all, I'm going to point out a few things that the animators make you aware of. The first thing, Akane's in her bedroom, which is riddled with trophies and awards. Akane was reading the book Looking for Darwin before falling asleep. I'll talk more about that later. It's very significant. 3, she wakes up in a house that is empty in the morning. We're going to pause again. But let's analyze this a little bit. So usually when a character wakes up in the morning, especially before school, that's like the busiest time in the household, at least from the anime that I've seen. The fact that her household is empty tells us a few things. 1, either her parents work overseas, either they're dead, or they're the workaholic type parents who don't have time to be at home. Let's pause here for a second. We see that the animators chose to draw Akane without her eyes, right? Her hair covering her eyes. Animators do this for a few reasons when they want to show that the character is hiding their emotion. We can clearly tell from this image that Akane is not happy. Her eyes not being there almost tell us a story that she's not happy, right? The eyes, especially in drawing, are used to show a lot of emotion. Leaving them out tends to show us emotion as well, which is kind of ironic, right? She has a pretty bad flashback before she leaves her house. She has a butler or personal driver that takes her to school. I remember I said that her financial situation might be one of the reasons that her parents aren't there. That, coupled with the fact that she has a personal butler, tells us something. As Akane leaves her home, you can see that there's a car waiting outside her home. I'm sure you guys can figure out what kind of character Akane would turn out to be in your typical anime. We're given almost everything we need to know about the character in the first few minutes of the show. Fast forward to the school. Akane is very popular with people around her, both teachers and students, and she does whatever she can to get them to like her. Akane has been sitting next to our true main character, Kageno, for the last 3 months of school. Now, Kageno is described by Akane as exceedingly average in grades, athletic ability, and looks. He also seems to get Nishino's name wrong consistently, and it's not told us if he's doing this on purpose or if it's an accident. He calls her Nishitani, Shimura, named NPC. And he says that he's pretty good at remembering names of people that are important, meaning that she is not important, which is kind of a jerk thing to say, but it was kind of funny. Now this gives us a hint into what kind of character Kageno might be. Now Akane doesn't even hate him for the fact that he gets her name wrong. She hates him because he's always looking past her, or she feels that he doesn't even look at her when addressing her at all, that he's always looking off somewhere distant. I'll fast forward a little bit more, and Akane is forced to stay after school for makeup lessons, while Kageno is given the duty to clean the classroom. Now Akane never walks home. I told you this before, that she has a personal butler that picks her up and drops her off. But today she has to walk home for some reason, and we see a scene with a serious-faced Kagano looking down on her from the rooftops. Now, this part is very cool because he has no reason to do that, right? We know, because we were given the information earlier, there was a car sitting outside of her home, but why would he be looking down at her from the rooftops? He clearly knows that's something wrong. That means that he was able to pick up on something that even we weren't shown. He's able to tell that something's not right. Kageno follows Akane, and it is revealed that there were kidnappers waiting for her. Akane is approached by 2 grown men, and then we learn that her father is the head of the Nishino group and is extremely wealthy. Remember, I talked about that earlier, but even prior to this information, you could kind of tell that that was the case. It's also revealed that Akane was kidnapped in the past by a stalker. This is the reason she has the flashback. This is probably the reason also that she's driven to and from school to avoid these kind of situations. Kidnappers kidnap Akane, and right before she passes out, we see Kageno in a blurry image through her eyes. He knew something was going to go down, which is crazy. Kageno follows the kidnappers to a warehouse, and on some Rock Lee shit, he begins to take off his weights. I'll talk more about the weights later. He breaks in from the roof and engages the 2 kidnappers in combat, and this is something that we never see in the manga. In the manga, we never get to see Kageno do anything in his natural world. We know a little bit about it. We never get to see what kind of person he is or what he does. He breaks in from the rooftops. The first kidnapper is your typical run-of-the-mill criminal Kageno dispatches in just a few seconds. The second kidnapper is a trained military veteran. He's physically much larger and much stronger than Kageno. Just from this altercation, we learn a lot about Kageno that we do not learn in the manga, and this is where the anime surpasses, at least in the beginning, the manga in my opinion. The first thing we learn is that he's very creative and has a high battle IQ. he dropped from the glass ceiling on the top and was able to grab a makeshift weapon, which is the second part, right? Number 2, he's proficient with throwing objects. He instantly realizes that these guys are going to be armed, and without us even seeing, when he drops down from the ceiling, he is able to grab a shard of glass and use it as a makeshift throwing knife to knock the gun out of the first kidnapper's hand. Number 3, he knows at least some grappling techniques or grappling forms of martial arts, and he's very strong. He's able to lift a grown man over him and slam him to the ground instantly. His weapon of choice is a dual set of crowbars kept under his sleeves or on his back. He's able to use them like tonfas to attack or use them for defense. And he switches to using them as makeshift clubs when he gets serious. Now, spoiler here, right? If you've been watching the anime, you already know. But when he goes into the next world, a lot of times he either uses a sword or he dual wields. The reason he's so proficient in that is 1, his training, and 2, we see here he dual wields a set of crowbars. Right, so that might have something to do with it. This is not the first dangerous thing that he has done, which we're also given more information on his other escapades. He drops down from the ceiling. He introduces himself as a stylish ruffian slayer before the fight. However, we learn throughout the fight that he's also called the Baklava Berserker for his frequent escapades of beating up motorcycle gangs and dual crowbars. Now, this part is cool because it's not just some punk that recognizes him by that name. It's a trained military veteran turned criminal, right? Not just your run-of-the-mill criminal. A professional criminal from the military knows him by that name and is visibly scared once he realizes who he truly is. The 7th thing we learn is that Kageno is ruthless to his enemies. He beats the second kidnapper. It had to be near death. I mean, he was beating on this man for a long time. I had to look away. He was hitting this man so hard, blood was splatting across the room. And we learn also that Kageno has studied guns. Once he beats the guys up, he ties them to a pillar, and we see in one of the scenes that he dismantled their pistols so that they were unable to use them. Now, only after he defeats the kidnappers do we learn of his true goal. He's disappointed with his performance against an ex-soldier. He claims that this is the best he can do. He'll never become the Eminence in Shadow. And that's the first time we're given that title or that name in the entire anime. Whereas in the manga, it's almost given to us immediately. Right? The next day, Akane addresses Kageno again, and this time he actually calls her by her real name, Nishino. Akane feels as though for the first time, Kageno actually looked at her, and then Akane gets the feeling that just like her, Kageno is living behind a mask. Akane is used to describe what other people think of Kageno, right? She's used as a medium through which an average person, quotes, right, average, is used, or how they view him, right? She says he's average in looks, he's average in athletic ability, he's average in grades. She's used as that medium. As the anime starts to wrap up, we see Kageno playing Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata on the piano at school. This may not mean anything to you now, but it will in the future, and trust me on that one. Now, Kageno's death is also handled differently in the anime. In the anime, his death is put on the news, and this is the first time we ever hear his first name, Minoru Kageno. He dies the same way. I mean, he's hit by a truck. Everyone in Isekai dies the same way, so there's really no point in me telling you how he dies, but we're not given really any reference to how he died in the anime, only that the truck driver lost control and they hit him, right? It's a little different in the manga. I'll talk about that in a minute. After his death, the anime ends with Moonlight Sonata as the credits roll. Now, the post credits, I didn't include those because he starts to talk about his training and his goal to become Eminence in Shadow. That's in the manga as well. They're just flip-flop, right? That's one of the first things we learn in the manga, and it's about the last thing we learn in the anime, so I'm not going to talk too much on that. Now, in the manga, the largest difference, obviously, again, is the absence of the character Akane Nishino. Now, the manga and the original novel both start with the focus on Kageno. The character Nishino does not exist, and we are instantly able to get an idea of what kind of person he is. In the manga, Kageno is almost a giant in comparison to those around him. In stark contrast to the anime introduction of him, in which he's depicted as average. He does not blend in with the people around him at all in the manga, right? And these two panels, you can see how large he is. Now, it's kind of weird because when he's talking about himself, we kind of see that he's more averagely built, but these panels show him to stick out like a sore thumb. So I tend to lean towards the thought that this larger version is him actually, because if you're training martial arts and lifting weights and doing all the things that he does, you'd probably be this big. And especially, I mean, he's in high school, his metabolism is probably crazy, so if he's doing this much training, he's probably this huge. And you can see in the panel that he sticks out and everyone is staring at him, right? He does not blend in nearly as well as he thinks he does. Now, in the anime, Kageno is introduced as more of a cool, calculating martial art badass, but in the manga, kind of given way more more into how unhinged he is. We're introduced to his training regimen and his search for magic. Minoru reveals that he practices zazen, a form of meditation under a waterfall. He meditates while mastering yoga. He even prays. He goes as far as to strip naked and continuously hit his head against a tree in order to unlock the secrets of magic. And where he got the idea that that would work, I couldn't tell you. Now, I know that I said I wouldn't mention the novel, but in the novel, he does this so frequently and he bangs his head so much, he gives himself a minor concussion. His vision starts to get blurry, and he starts to, hallucinate to the point where he thinks that he sees magic. He begins to give himself a concussion. That's the main thing that leads to his death in the novel. That's also, now the manga handles his death much differently than the anime. In the anime, his death's not talked much about, and we saw that he died getting hit by a truck because the driver was not paying attention to the road. In the manga, after training in the woods, Kageno sees flickering lights in the distance and believes them to be magic. He races towards the light and is struck by a truck. His death is portrayed as silly in the manga because we know the context in which it happened. Right now, again, let me include the novel. That concussion plays a huge part, because after giving himself the concussion and having the blurry vision, he believes that he unlocks the secrets of magic. He races towards those two lights, which causes him to get hit. In the anime, we have no context for that. Again, he goes out much more cool in the anime and a lot more silly in the manga. Now, a few cool things I picked up on is episode 1, right at 1 minute and 59 seconds, Kageno drops his bag and you can hear that there's a medal inside. At 2 minutes and 57 seconds, when he picks it up, you can also hear it again, right? Those aren't just books in there. At 2 minutes and 28 seconds, you can hear how heavy his shoes are. When he puts his shoes inside the locker, those do not sound like regular shoes. At 2 minutes and 44 seconds, when closing his locker, you can see him wearing his wrist weights. And at 4 minutes and 25 seconds, not so subtle, he's using a grip strengthener and he's counting in the tens of thousands. Right? He's not just a normal dude. Another thing that I thought was cool is that when Akane volunteers to stay after school to clean the classroom, the teachers and students remind her that she has makeup lessons. The teacher then refers to Kageno not by the name Kageno, but as you sitting next to her, which is, if you know anything about this anime, means that Kageno is succeeding in staying as a background or mob character. So much so that the teacher doesn't even reference him by name when asking him to clean the room. In the first few seconds of the anime, we see that Akane fell asleep reading the book Looking for Darwin. Looking for Darwin is a book written by author Lloyd Spencer Davis. Without boring you too much about the book, it tries to answer the question, what are we doing here? Like, why are we here? What's the meaning of life? It follows Lloyd Spencer Davis as he attempts to retrace the steps of Charles Darwin. For those of you that may be unaware, Charles Darwin is a biologist who came up with the theory of evolution through natural selection. This is cool for the animators to include because we know that Kageno is trying to evolve. He's trying to be a human to unlock the secrets of magic. Now, the fact that they include Akane, another character also living behind a mask, portraying herself as someone she is not, reading this book is just a cool tidbit that they threw in there. She did not have to be reading this. It follows Lloyd Spencer Davis walking in the footsteps of Charles Darwin. We have Akane living behind a mask, portraying herself as the popular happy girl when she's not very happy at all. We have Kageno, the one who wants to become the Eminence in Shadow, this martial arts badass, living behind the mask of mob character A, average in every category. That's the end of episode 1. If you want me to cover episode 2, let me know in the comments below. Now, if you like this video, drop a like and consider subscribing. I'm going to try my best to release a video every week. Stay tuned for more to come. Thank you for watching.